This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. Investors managing more than $10 trillion on Wednesday published an ambitious blueprint for energy companies seeking to tackle climate change, including sharp cuts to greenhouse gas emissions and a winding down of oil and gas production. The unprecedented initiative, dubbed the Net Zero Standard for Oil and Gas, details 10 required standards to help money managers compare companies' strategies and understand whether they are aligned with United Nations-backed efforts to reduce global carbon emissions to net zero by 2050. Oil and gas companies such as BP and Royal Dutch Shell have published targets and strategies aimed at battling climate change, but the huge variation in scope, definitions and ambition makes analysis and comparison exceedingly difficult for investors.
China's crude oil throughput continued to fall in August, with daily runs hitting the lowest since May 2020, as a resurgence in coronavirus cases and a drastic cut in fuel export quotas hurt production at refineries. Processing volumes in August were 58.35 million tons, or 13.74 million barrels per day, BPD, down 2.2% from a year earlier. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, showed on Wednesday. That was also less than the 13.91 million barrels of oil per day in July, which was a 14-month low. Total throughput during the first 8 months of 2021 reached 470.79 million tons, up 7.4% from a year earlier, largely reflecting the economy's recovery from the initial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Oil prices rose over $2 a barrel on Wednesday after government data showed a larger than expected drawdown in U.S. crude inventories, and on expectations demand will rise as vaccination rollouts widen. U.S. crude oil stockpiles fell last week to the lowest since September 2019, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said, extending their drawdown after Hurricane Ida's hit late August shut numerous refineries and offshore drilling production. Brent crude rose $2.12, or 2.9%, to $75.72 a barrel by 11:14 a.m. Eastern Time, 15:14 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate, WTI, crude climbed $2.28, or 3.3%, to $72.75 a barrel.
U.S. crude oil and fuel stockpiles dropped sharply last week, as refiners in the U.S. Gulf region and oil facilities offshore were still recovering from Hurricane Ida's hit late August, the Energy Information Administration said on Wednesday. Crude inventories fell by 6.4 million barrels in the week to September 10 to 417.4 million barrels, compared with expectations in a Reuters poll for a 3.5 million barrel drop. Refining activity picked up from the previous week, but the overall increase was modest as various facilities were still in the process of restarting. The drop in offshore output stemmed crude production, which rose modestly to 10.1 million barrels per day.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
The European Union is set to impose duties on aluminium from China in October, only to suspend them for 9 months, the EU Industry Association said on Wednesday, adding that this would threaten jobs and send the wrong signal to Beijing. The European Commission launched an investigation into aluminium flat-rolled products, which are used in a variety of sectors, from construction to transport and consumer durables, in August 2020 and set provisional duties of between 19.3% and 46.7% in April 2021. Definitive duties, likely to be between 14% and 25%, would normally apply from October for 5 years. However, after complaints from 2 aluminium users and an importer, they are set to be suspended for 9 months, European Aluminium said.
China's crude steel production fell for a third straight month in August as Beijing maintained curbs on production to reduce carbon emissions, official data showed on Wednesday. The world's largest steel producer churned out 83.24 million tons of the metal last month, down 4.1% from July and well down on output of 94.85 million tons in August 2020. Data from the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, showed. China's resolution to reduce carbon emissions and pollutants from the ferrous sector have capped steel production since late June. But the efforts have also supported steel prices on supply concerns, as September and October are normally peak times for steel consumption in construction activities. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Russian farmers are expected to sow less winter wheat this autumn than record levels seen a year ago due to unfavorable weather conditions, a switch to oilseeds in some regions, and concerns about the country's grain export tax, analysts said. Russia is the world's largest wheat exporter to Africa, the Middle East and other regions. Winter wheat, sown in autumn for harvesting in summer, typically accounts for 70% of the country's crop. It brings a higher yield than spring varieties and is less vulnerable to weather. We sowed a little in the dry soil. We thought we would do more, but it has not rained yet, a farmer in Russia's Orenburg region told Reuters, adding that his optimal timing for sowing would expire in a couple of days.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.